Right, welcome to the build, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you've been following the build series, you will have seen me working on the Fender a couple of episodes back, and the issue that I had was I wasn't happy with how the welds turned out on that patch piece that I put in. So that was used with a flux core welder, and I just wasn't happy with the look of the welds. Even though I dressed them down, grinded them down, they just weren't very clean, and they were just pretty much ugly. So since then, what I've decided to do is got myself some proper gas, some welding gas, and some solid wire. I've just gone back to the Fender again, cut that piece out, and now just welding a new part back in place. Okay, so that's the patch piece welded into the Fender, and I'm a lot more happier with how the welds have turned out. They're a bit more solid, robust, and they're a bit cleaner. It does still need a bit more dressing down. I've got a few high spots and low spots within the Fender itself, that patch piece. I think what I'm going to do is the low spots I'm probably going to tap or have a go at tapping material out, just lightly with a hammer, just to kind of shape it, give it a bit of form, and then sand it down with various grits of sandpaper. Right, so that's the Fender sort of done and dusted. What I need to do now is think of or come up with a solution to mount the Fender onto the bike. So this has to be mounted, or I'd like it to be mounted onto the swing arm. So what I've done is created this little tool, and basically all it is just a piece of scrap wood, but it uses the exact, well, not quite the exact, but it uses the shape or form of the Fender itself. So what I'd like to do is form a metal bar, or bend a bar around that form. So basically I'm going to have a bracket that runs over the top of the Fender and then mount somewhere down on the swing arm. That's the plan anyway. Right, so the bracket, or the Fender bracket over the top of the Fender, didn't quite go to plan. It kind of looks okay from some angles, however other angles, yeah, I'm not happy with it. So forming the bar around that piece of that pattern, or that block of scrap material that I've made up. The one side where I've got the clip holding the bar in place, that seems to do the job really well. So it's pulling the bar tight to that radius, and it's really tight to that kind of Fender shape. However, on the other side, where I can't get that tightness, the radius is just, it's just not following the contour of the Fender. So not happy with it, and stuff like this gives me sleepless nights. Okay, so next morning, had a bit of a sleep on it, try and come up with a solution which I could use on the bike. But nothing came to mind as I was trying to get some sleep. But anyhow, next morning, I started playing around with bits and pieces on the bike just to see what kind of ideas would kind of spring to mind in the process. Part of the way through, I basically took the bar that I'd formed around the tool and I just cut it in half. There was nothing I could do with it. The form, I wasn't happy with it, but obviously didn't want to waste the material. So cut it in half, used the straights and some of the partial bends and just offered them up to the bike. I'd also put the mounting bosses in place on the Fender as well, so I could kind of offer the bars up to that, and hopefully, an idea would spring to mind or make itself apparent, which it kind of did, thank God. Right, that's the Fender mounted on the bike. So it's taken me a while, but I've got there in the end. So yeah, considering to begin with I wanted to go with that kind of bar that goes over the top, I'm really happy with what I've come up with here. Looks pretty good. These mounts, obviously I had to clean them down, file them down, sand them down, so they look fairly reasonable. But yeah, I am happy with them. Following it down, I've got to do a bit more cleanup around the neck of this kind of bracket here. It's just a little bit wide. I know I'm probably nitpicking a little bit, but I want to make it, I just want it right. Coming to the top, so that patch piece, I've had a little go at tapping that out, or tapping that from the underside, and yeah, it's started. I can definitely feel the material kind of forming. So I'm going to have keep having a go at that. I've never done metal work before, sheet metal, but yeah, it's starting to come along. I'm not looking for perfection, but if I can get it kind of just, should we say, I'll be happy with that. Now on the front, I've made up the mounting point, so obviously it's quite springy at the minute. I did plan to mount a bar from this kind of bar section across the Fender down onto the swing arms from down here. So I got all the material cut out, but I just thought it was a bit plain. And I'm thinking I could probably do something a bit more interesting with it. So I'm thinking maybe some sort of brass, I don't know, brass kind of bar, or I don't know, something a bit more decorative. But yeah, I'll have a think about that. But that's how it's going to mount to the swing arm anyway. I think at some point as well I'm going to have to cut these old Fender kind of mounts off as well, because yeah, they're going to start getting into the way of the Fender. But that'll be another thing to crack on with.